Hey, good morning, everybody. Scott Luton here with you on Veteran Voices. Thanks for joining us here today. We have an outstanding episode teed up with an Army veteran and an entrepreneur that gives back to the veteran community like very few others. So stay tuned. A quick program note before we get started with our conversation today. Veteran Voices is part of our Supply Chain Now family of programming, but today's show is conducted in partnership with our dear friends over at Vets to Industry. Powerful nonprofit doing big things for our veteran community. So check them out at vets2industry.org. Okay, no further ado, I want to welcome in our guest here today. He is a 20-year Army veteran. He's founder and CEO of Patriot, but that's just one of several small but very successful businesses that our guest has founded and one of many initiatives that he leads. Our guest is a tireless veterans advocate who has mentored tens of thousands of veterans and military spouses over the past few years. So please join me in welcoming Justin C. Pearson to the show. Justin, how you doing?
Hey, good, Scott. Thank you so much for having me on today's show. Greatly appreciated.
Well, great to finally get connected. Of course, Vets to Industry, we're both big fans of that organization. Yes. Brian Arrington got us connected. We're both, I think, members of the Brian Arrington fan club, right?
Yep. I think I got my coin right behind me. You can see it right there. Hold on. I'm going to go up. Here it is right there. That is the V2I coin.
I love it. And let's see here. We had to probably rope you in from the gorgeous scenery that you got up there, kind of in the in or near the Shenandoah National Forest, right?
Yeah. Backyard overlooks the national park there. It's beautiful. You know, I'm very, very blessed to have such a view out in the mountains. So
I am jealous. We're gonna have to get a picture that maybe we can publish to the episode page. Yep. But hey, Justin, in the meantime, I want to get to know you a little bit better before we get into your service and 20 years with the Army, and then of course all the cool things you've been up to since. Let's get to know Justin C. Pearson a little bit better. So, where did you grow up, Justin?
Yeah, Scott. Thanks. I grew up in Montana, way kind of, in big sky country, way out in the middle of nowhere. People still have a hard time understanding there is not much, in Montana. There's less than 1 million people that are in the entire state. So I grew up initially out on a ranch about 119 miles out of town, a little town called Big Sandy, Montana. I think there was maybe 72 in the entire school from kindergarten to 12th grade, right? And it took quite a while.
I got to ask you before, do you get, whenever you share that with folks, do any of them ask you if you watch Yellowstone? You know what was coming, right?
Yeah. I've seen it. However, with all the different initiatives and projects that I'm on, I haven't had much time to follow through with spending time watching those awesome shows.
Well, hey, one more question. So I loaded up the family last spring, and we went down to the swamp that's down in Georgia, Okefenokee, right? On the border of Georgia, Florida. And we went down there mainly because it's one of the darkest places in the hemisphere. So we can see the stars, unlike you can see, you can't do that here because of all the light pollution. Now, growing up in Montana, big sky country.
Yep.
What were the skies like at night?
It's truly amazing. The Northern Lights, I go back to thinking back to August of 2015 when I got married with my wife out in Glacier National Park. And we were up on the Lookout Pass. I think it was Grant's Lookout Pass. And there was a Milky Way a meteor shower that was happening that night. And we laid out there up at, I want to say it was, 12,000 feet up at the lookout. And we literally laid, down on the concrete right there in the main visitors parking lot, and we were watching the sky, seeing the Milky Way come alive, seeing the lights within the Milky Way and all those stars move and shoot across the sky. It was really, really an amazing experience. And furthermore, it's one of the many experiences that one could have in Glacier National Park.
Justin, man, I'm so jealous. All right, so now we knocked out Yellowstone, and we knocked out stargazing, which I'm a big space nerd. You were kind of going to speak, elaborate a little bit more on your upbringing. When you think of some of the anecdotes and some of the things you were passionate about growing up in Montana, what comes to mind?
It's manual labor every day, all day. It's hard work. I remember picking rocks when I was a kid, going out to the rock quarry, and you would pick a rock, and the rock had to be bigger than the size of your fist to be able to get a penny, right? And you put the pennies in the back of the pickup truck. And then over the period of the summer, at this point in time, I'm a freshman, I'm a sophomore in high school, or going into my junior year. And I mean, at best, you're making $175, $200 for all of that work. I mean, yes, that was in mid 90s, it was a lot of hard work and effort. And, I take those same principles, right, of how I was brought up back then out on a farm with chickens, making sure our property was good to go, right? Take those same principles here into my daily work ethic and life after the military. So use those same principles throughout the military. So
I love it. I love it. Okay. So I got to ask you about one more thing before we transition over to your time in uniform, serving our country with the Army. Food, growing up food wise in Montana, what made up your meals?
It was meat and dairy.
Yeah.
You were out on a farm. You had, beef, chicken, poultry. It was, very seldom were you actually going into town to where, town had one blinking light. It had a gas station with a grocery store in the gas station that was smaller than the size of a 7-Eleven that, the 800 people, I think, that lived there at the time, maybe it was 700, but out of the whole community, right, that's where you went. And there wasn't a lot there. So driving into town, everything that we had to eat was pretty much, being self-reliant out there on the farm and growing what we were eating, Scott.
I love it, Justin. Okay. I think we've gotten some pretty cool insights into those early experiences that made Justin C. Pearson the person you are today, between hard work and being self-reliant, as you put it. Yeah. Those sounds like cornerstones of who you are.
Exactly, without a doubt.
So now let's get to what perhaps impacted you as much or close to it, and that's 20 years serving our country in the United States Army. So what made you join the Army?
I could say a little bit of it was, family tradition. Now that I look back on it, but when I initially had joined this service, it was more or less, hey, I want to get out and I want to do something. I want to be adventurous. I want to make a name for myself. I want to push myself to the limits. My cousins out on the ranch were much bigger than me. I'm 6'1", 240 pounds. My cousins, they were all, 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 3.25", 350 pounds. They were big, huge ranching individuals. My little brother's 6'6.5", and probably, 340 pounds. So
wow.
I'm the runt of the family. And as the running joke, right, they always said, hey, pork chop, right? You're just a little pork chop, And so growing up, that always kind of stung me a little bit, right? And so I was like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to make something of myself. I'm going to do something adventurous. I'm going to push myself to the limits, and I'm going to make not only my family proud, but my nation proud.
Wow. Gosh, 6'1", 240, and you're the runt of the litter. That is crazy, Justin. But I bet y'all had a bunch of fun. Sounds like you grew up with a big loving family, and you had a great time together. So some of that influenced your decision to join the military. Is that right?
Yeah. That obviously I wanted to get off of the ranch, get on with my life. Being out on the ranch, our closest neighbor, was good 20 miles away. So what did you do for fun? Well, you were taking out the 3-wheeler, or you were on a horse, right? You were doing something that, people in today's age, don't do. Like, hey, let's go, ride the 3-wheeler, off this jump into the lake just so we can, hoopla. So eventually I was like, I want to get out of here. And it just happened to be the one thing that I wanted to touch on is, my father served and my grandfather served. All were infantrymen. But when I joined, me becoming an infantryman in the Army, and jumping out of planes, like I never knew my father was that at that point in time, or my grandfather was that, and they earned, prestigious combat infantryman's badge awards during their service, or they earned the Bronze Star during their service. And then it just happened, over the period of my career, I was awarded and, experienced those similar awards and
Right.
recipients of those awards. So,
Well, I love how that runs in your family, that this incredible commitment to serving, and not just serving, but serving with abandon, and in a extraordinary manner. So let's talk about what you did in the Army. What was your MOS?
so when I joined, I was an infantryman, right? It took me several stints to be able to pass the ASVAB. I was a hardworking ranch kid. I wasn't, in the books and learning. The learning then in Montana is much different than learning now in the curriculum that is in the schools now. So it took me a couple times to pass the test. And when I did finally pass the test, and it wasn't like, I would miss it by a point and then I would score 25 points higher. And then they're like, nope, you got to take it again. Right. And then when I took it again, I scored 20 points lower. And then they're like, well, you have to be within this range. So I ended up taking the test like 4 times just to get into the service. And then when I got in, when I passed it, they're like, you can only be an infantryman. And I was like, well, what is that? What does that mean? Well, I'll only do it if I can jump out of planes. So they had to, pick up the phone, make a call to the special people. And, lo and behold, I was jumping out of planes and got that in my contract and, left out to serve in June of 97.
Okay. Wow. And that started what would end up being a 20-year career. Did you have a good sense? I can remember I served just less than 4, right? Because I had a kind of a strange 2-part. But as I was approaching that first enlistment period, where I was either going to transition or re-enlist, man, the conversations changed, the recruitment changed, and a lot of my peers, some of them exited, but some of them wanted that bonus. They stayed in. Did you, as you approached the end of your first term, did you get a sense that it was going to be a career, or were you had some eyes on the other side of the fence? What was your mind?
No, at that point in time, you think of the first 2, 3, 4 years, and I think my first enlistment was 4 years, right? And in those first 4 years, I graduated infantry. I earned my blue cord. I went to airborne school. I learned how to jump out of planes. I went to an airborne unit, which was the 82nd Airborne Charlie Company, 1505 Parachute Infantry Regiment, right? The Panthers. And, we were going out on missions all the time. We were doing training exercises. You were with the platoon in the company, a bunch of hard chargers, right? A bunch of individuals that, you want to go out, you want to train hard, you want to play, and then come in on the weekends and play hard, right? So it was.
Where do I sign up? I'm ready to go,
yeah,
Justin. You sold me, man.
It was high. It was. You were going, and so I didn't have much of an opportunity early on in my career to just sit back and chill and relax as the infantry guy who wanted to be the best. And at that point in time, young in my military career, I'm winning the awards. I'm holding the guide on high for the company commander. I'm doing all of these really, really awesome things that are helping me define my physical fitness and my abilities as a young leader in the military, right? And then at that point in time, when you're at that peak, and then the military says, oh, this is awesome. Where do you want to go? We would love to give you this, that, and the other. Oh, do you want to go to recruiting and try that out? Earn another skill set? We can give you a bonus too, right? So that's kind of the domino effect that happened through my military career, is I wanted to try all these new experiences and becoming a skilled professional in each of those areas. When you look at them in bite-sized chunks of 3 years at a time, there was always a dangly carrot being held in front of you. Hey, you want to go to Hawaii? You can check Hawaii. Yeah, you spend some time in Hawaii, get a tan. And those jokers, at that point in time, I mean, they were some good guidance counselors that were in the military units that were keeping the soldiers in. So, being able to go from recruiting as my second duty over to Hawaii as my third duty, as 2001, September 11th had just happened, I'm going back into the fight at that point in time, not knowing what's going to happen and whatnot. So yeah, bite-sized chunks throughout my whole military career. Once I got to like the maybe 14-year mark, at that point in time, I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm staying in for the 30. There was always this like, I'm going to stay in for 30 plus years. And obviously at 20 years, that magic light flipped on and it was like, yeah, okay, Airborne, I'm out of here.
So you went in 97. So that would mean that you exited in 2017. Is that right?
Yep. 2017.
Okay. All right. So, and so you were there throughout, obviously September 11th and how that changed everything. Before we talk about some of the great folks you served with, and we never have enough time for that in these short conversations, but speak to how that, I always am intrigued by the folks I speak to that served in the military before 9/11 and then kind of throughout that, that the turbulent times that came with it and lasted for years. Speak to that if you would, a little bit, Justin.
Thank you for bringing that up. That can be a very, very, a sensitive topic for veterans, some more so than others. And, when I think back, when I left recruiting in just after September 11th, because I remember when September 11th happened, and I was a recruiter in Missoula, Montana. And I was already on orders to go to Schofield Barracks, Hawaii, to an infantry unit. And, I had been out of regular training for, at this point, just over 2 years, right? So as a young leader that has not been primarily in the job that I initially enlisted into, I was scared, I was nervous, but excited to be able to get back into the organization that was going to deploy, right? So I think I'd got to, when I left Montana to go to Hawaii, I would say it was like the middle of October when I initially arrived, and I went right into the reception battalion. And then from there, they immediately put us on different guard posts, right? And then we waited for weeks upon weeks within the replacement organization that we were in order to get to our normal unit, which then when I finally got to the normal unit, we were again on gate guards and different types of guards guarding the posts around Hawaii. And we waited, and it was a waiting game, and when you're wanting to go and then you can't go, especially when you are, in an infantry unit and you're supposed to go, that was hard. And then from there, like other organizations, other infantry units, they were the ones going, right? And so then we were pulling different types of guard duties and different assignments while they were gone. And then when we weren't doing that, we were going over to the Big Island, or we were going to the national training, the Big Island. There's different types of training on the Big Island versus the organization or my unit sending us to the National Training Center in California, or to Polk, Louisiana, to do different types of training in preparation to go. And then finally in March of 2004, from March of 2004 to June, I think it was, of 2005, our organization deployed to Afghanistan and served, overseas for, roughly 14 or 15 months. So that was definitely an experience that, I still, carry on my heart and on my shoulders today, to live that and to experience that and to be a leader within within that type of within those types of operations. So, I don't necessarily jump into, sharing exact stories of things that happen, but it's, something still to this day that, I guess heavy burden on my heart. And it's, one of those things that, when I think about the company that I built and being able to honor our military and our service members and our veterans and those that serve, that really was, one of the key pivotal moments where I was like, I got to do this sometime, and I want to build this company specifically around patriotism. So
I appreciate
thanks,
sharing
Scott.
that. You bet. I appreciate your time and your service as a combat veteran and those experiences that are certainly going to stick with you for the rest of your life. And I think also what's really cool to see, and we're going to touch on this in a minute. We're going to get some good stories from you about some of the wonderful people that you worked alongside. It's one of our favorite parts of these episodes. But also, I love veterans that come back like the two of us, and they can realize the American dream through entrepreneurship, and it gets in their blood. And then, the places they'll go, as Dr. Seuss put it. Okay, so I want to talk about the folks you served with, and I know that there's hundreds, right, if not thousands, of people that we remember and have a story for. But for the sake of time, give us a few that really played big roles in your time in the Army.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I'll fast forward into my military career to the last half of my military career, where I was then, a leader and a manager within Army recruiting for the United States Army. And there's an individual that I met in 2007 by the name of Manny Atencio, who he actually now works for AFMA, an organization that I work for during the day. But Manny, Manny was a brigade command sergeant major at the time when I was a company first sergeant. And, he was an individual that, wanted to teach you exactly how to be the best leader you could be. When you come across people in the military, some are shouters and they just, they tell you what to do, or there's a lot of expectations, but you don't find many individuals that take the time to sit down and teach you all of these great skills and abilities that they have, or tactics or strategies that they have to help you be a better leader in the military, or a better leader as a person, as a father. And he was an individual, over the period of, and still is, over the period of the last 14 years, has been a great inspiration in my life still to this day. And watching him as he exited the military, because I was part of his military transition too. And at that point in time, he was the head chair of the Sergeant Majors Academy for the top enlisted individuals that were selected for promotion to Sergeant Major. They would go through a year-long course, and he was one of the chairs, and he helped lead the academy, at the academy in Fort Bliss, Texas, that's where they trained new individuals to become sergeant majors. So he was also instrumental in me being selected for the Sergeant Majors Academy, because in 2015, I was selected for E9, right? And I was selected, that was like in December of 2015. In August of 2016, I was supposed to be at the Sergeant Majors Academy, Scott, in Fort Bliss, Texas. At that point in time, I lived in Waco, Texas. So it just happened to be, it's on my birthday week. I was in, my birthday's in May, right? Okay. So I always, I take a week off and I go to a national park. And I was in Utah. Right, we were visiting Zion, we were visiting Bryce, we were visiting the Grand Canyon, and that's when I just woke up and I said, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to jump into this new ecosystem that they call, corporate America, and I want to see how well I can do in corporate America, as well as how can I impact all service members, all military families, in a position or in positions in life after the service. service, right? Because one of the things that I valued so much, throughout my times in the service was being able to be that leader and manager, that coach and that mentor, the individual that took the time to listen to your employees, to your soldiers, to help them grow, so they can learn and develop and they can assume your position ultimately. And now being able to do that, over the period of the last 4+ years since I've been out in a variety of different positions has been extremely fulfilling to me. And when I look back and I reflect and I said, 4 years after I've been out of the service, Scott, did I accomplish some of those goals that I wanted? And without a doubt, I crushed it. I literally crushed it from the aspect of being able to impact our military families, right? From the individual in Minneapolis, Minnesota, when the city was on fire, that was homeless, that I helped get a job, as a customer service agent at Wells Fargo, or the individual that got a $800,000 offer, at a Fortune 30 company in New York City, right? That was a West Point grad, Ranger guy jumping out of planes and was a military, veteran himself. I've been able to help,
Right.
so many different types of veterans in so many different career fields too, as well. So,
All right. So we're gonna have to have you back. I think we've got 17 more chapters that deserves in their own hour as far as your journey goes. So you mentioned Manny. Manny clearly was really important to you. Sounds like Manny was a person of patience that took the time to invest and train, help others learn. Who else? Give us one of the person that really sticks out amongst your time in the Army.
There's two. They come together. They were a team, right? And that was, my battalion sergeant major and my battalion commander, my battalion command sergeant major. Y'all will remember him too. Good old Arthur L. Coleman Jr., right? And my battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Scott McBride. And, when I think of superheroes, I think of those individuals. When I think of people with no fear, I think of those individuals. When you think of a hero from the extent of putting themselves out there every second of the deployment and providing the best leadership to their soldiers, those individuals, they were the ones that were walking in front of the formations, motivating those formations in an environment that no one really was ready for in Afghanistan. And so when I look back and I see that time and I see how they reacted to that and the leadership that they provided our entire organization, right? That leadership and those principles rippled, over the last decade plus, 15+ years, 20+ years, Scott, that I still think back and I'm like, they were just amazing in the most hostile, hazardous environment. And what am I doing? Why am I not, stepping up like I need to step up? Or it's during the conversations that I'll have to be able to pause and take those patient moments when someone's explaining the situation that they have at hand, to be able to give them the right type of executable a plan of action, right? That, sometimes it might sting a little bit, but it definitely opened up their eyes and it made them think like, wow, that was, some of the best advice I've ever received. And that's, in the mentorship discussions that I have, I'm able to create an environment where, there is that type of rawness, that authentic discussion that, can change people's lives. And I'm just blessed to be able to be afforded situations like that, Scott.
Wow. All right. So Manny, Arthur, and Scott, just a few folks that clearly impacted you for not only your time in the Army, but your career that followed and your entrepreneurship journey that followed. So along those lines, let's talk about your transition out of the Army. So I think how you put it a moment ago, you had taken a week off as part of your yearly birthday tradition. You woke up at one of the parks, either Bryce or Zion up in Utah.
Yeah, I was
what?
near like, yeah, exactly.
I've reached the end of my 20 plus years with the Army. I'm ready for the next challenge. So talk to us about your transition out of the Army.
Yes, Scott. So were you on LinkedIn in 2016?
I was.
Okay, right. So at that point in time, like, it just became available to upload a picture.
Really?
Think about that,
Wow.
right? At that point in time, we were just allowed the opportunity, and they had the coding, right, to upload a graphic onto LinkedIn. Wow. And then it was in, because that's like in the June timeframe, the July timeframe of 2016. You fast forward into December was when they allowed to do the URL, right? And you could post a URL. So, as one of the first veterans that were really holding the torch high in trying to leverage LinkedIn and get an understanding of it, I went out and I'm like, hey, I'm going to get a professional video done from an actual, videographer team in Waco, Texas. They're going to do a YouTube video, right? I'm going to push this YouTube video out and share it. And then when I send out messages to connect with great professionals such as yourself, Scott, I can say, hey, and when you have a minute, Scott, hey, I have a great 2-minute video that tells a little bit about myself, right? Unbeknownst to me, like, at that point in time, being very, not only young in my transition, but not fully understanding how to build the right types of relationships in a civilian environment. It didn't work out the best for me, right? It took a lot of time and a lot of effort in building my network and trying to communicate with people, more at, like, not shouting at them, but, just constantly trying to, have those interactions with them, so it was tough, like, for me in my transition. And I just share the 2016, like, LinkedIn is totally different then as it is now. Like, there wasn't coaches and mentors on it. There wasn't these resource groups that were on it. It was more or less, it was just the civilian marketplace, of people finding jobs. It wasn't like there wasn't a huge presence of military on it, right? So when I decided to transition out, it was really tough for me, but at that time, I was still very, very hard-headed. I had the infantry mindset, and I'm like, hey, if someone told me, Justin, if you were going to be successful, all you had to do was road march from Fort Drum, New York to Fort Irwin, California, could you do it? And I'm like, yeah, of course, I'm going to do it. So what does that mean? Well, that means I need to send out, 10,000 friend requests, right? Literally 10,000 connection requests. I need to send out 3,000 specific messages to those individuals, right? I need to have 800 conversations with people, which ultimately will lead to maybe, 100 people that say they have job opportunities, which, down the funnel. And next thing you know, it was, over the period of a year of doing that, it was finally like, hey, okay, I have multiple job offers. I can sort through it. I can figure it out. I've learned a tremendous amount. So that was my hurricane and my tornado of a military transition, really from mid 2016 to February of 2017. And then I started my first role in, I want to say, March of 2017.
So before you moved there, it sounds like, even though you as you put it, infantry thick-headed, I think is what you said. I can
Thick-headed infantry guy.
Yes, I can identify. I'm usually the slower one too. And just sometimes it takes me an extra minute to get it. It seems like, to me, what I'm hearing, just not to put words in your mouth, but once you might have been slow or not in the know initially, but once you wrapped your head around it, what I heard with you sharing those numbers and those different activities is you really took a lot of systemization and discipline,
a systematic approach.
Yes, to that transition. And you knew it was, to some degree, a numbers game, which to some degree it is, but then there's also a quality component and a focus. And, if you're going to reach out to 10,000 people, Who are those people? If you're going to have 800 conversations, who are those folks, and how are you going to approach it? So it really sounds like there was a lot of discipline and focus and systemization in your approach. Is that right?
Well, so in that first transition, it was at a very high level, but it wasn't focused. And, over the period of a couple transitions, throughout the last, 4.5 years, I was able to really take in the quality aspect, right? So then you are hyper focusing down into specific types of industries, at specific locations, specific types of companies, types of roles, people within those roles. So when you are networking with those individuals, you're networking with the right types of individuals, then you're doing a lot of research on those individuals. So when you do have the opportunity to interact with them, you're able to interact in a quality way where an individual such as yourself says, yeah, Justin, hey, let's jump on, let's have a live stream. Let's talk about it, man. I want to learn about you. And that's a prime way of just building relationships. And that comes back to, what I'm sure when we get to points, it will be through the military transition. I feel the most meaningful thing that you can do that is going to produce results in networking and building this community of support for yourself. It has to be building true meaningful relationships with people that surpass the LinkedIn. I did a LinkedIn message with you. It has to get to a telephone call, to a video call, to going to coffee in the morning, to having lunch, to going to a networking event together, to participating in a project, right, with that individual. Right. At that individual's company, giving them your tidbits of expertise, right? Your social proof during this whole process. So when you are ready to potentially get a job or need a job or an opportunity is going to present itself, you have then proven yourself to those within your network, right? That can provide job opportunities for you or open the door from a referral perspective because they know who you are and they want to do that for you because they believe in you and they know that you have the skill sets to be able to provide solutions and impactful results to organizations.
I love that. It's not transactional. It is not transactional, which is what you're speaking to. All right. So what I want to do is I want to keep going down this path of advice that you'd offer, and then I'm going to circle back, and then you'll be able to share some of the things you did after you transitioned, because I think there's a wide variety of things you've done, including some of your own businesses, and of course we'll talk about proper Patriot before we leave here today. So let's keep going. Let's imagine Justin C. Pearson keynoting in this room full of very locked in veterans that are transitioning. And what's continued on that path? What else would you tell them if you had a very short list and you had their captive attention for a couple minutes? What else do they need to know?
Yeah, marketing, networking, and branding. Those are the three elements that any career seeker or individual that's transitioning from one career to another needs to have, especially in this corporate America environment or this digital environment, right? Even from the brand perspective, you need to be able to build your brand properly to show your skill sets and your expertise, not from what I did in the past, but what am I trying to do in the future? Am I a business developer, sales? Do I build strategic partnerships? Am I a marketing guru? Do I run paid campaigns? Do I do analytics? Am I a project or program manager? Right? You have to build that brand, right? And as you're building that brand and then being able to showcase your skill sets, your experience from the past, you're able to show it in the future tense of what you're doing. So those that you have worked with or are networking with, it's relatable. If you're networking with individuals specifically in those niches, it's like, wow, okay, great. Especially now if you've networked in areas that you live in or that you're potentially going to move to, right? If you say, hey, I want to be in Charlotte, or I want to be in Northern Virginia, or I want to be in, or I want to be in Chicago, right? Okay, well, let's think about the networking from those perspectives. Also think about, the different organizations within those companies that you may want to hyper focus on from are they veteran friendly? Are they military friendly? What types of programs are they doing? What types of initiatives do they do? Do they have community events? Do they have recruiting teams that I can go and meet? You know, what types of sponsorships are they doing within their local community? So you can go out and physically shake hands and meet people, or jump on a virtual networking event to talk about a position, right? I mean, that's common sense. And in this marketing game, as you're starting to market yourself, you also have to be marketing yourself properly. We can't say, hey, I want $100,000 job, but I just want to be a human resources, coordinator. But if you're saying, hey, I want to be a project manager in the Northern Virginia area, and I'm looking for a role that's between 100 and 120,000, okay, that makes sense. Right? You have to get everything aligned. So when you do start those conversations and people do ask, right, then you're able to show your value, right? Talk about your value proposition, the business case that you bring, why it's important to be able to get you hired at that organization, right? So they want you a part of the team. But in a nutshell, those would be the three things that I would talk about.
I love it. Marketing, networking, and branding. And one more follow-up question before we talk about what some of the things you've done since transitioning. Question for you. Do you believe when folks hear networking, one of my, let's see if you agree with me, one of my observations that I've long held when it comes to networking is a lot of folks go into a networking conversation and they go right into ask mode. They're going to figure out how you can help them. And then they're going to go straight to the ask and relationship building and kind of that dig your well before you're thirsty mentality, which is such a best practice, is not even part. Do you feel that that's a common mistake with networking?
100%. It just immediately, sets an incorrect tone. So, right, I call it the rule of 7 as you're interacting and you're meeting people, try to give 7 times, right? Try to do something for that individual or that organization on at least 7 occasions. Like the goal isn't for you to get a quick win. You got it. You could even look at it from the 7-month perspective, right? Hey, if in 7 months, you're able to build the right relationship, will you have a job with this particular organization? And if you look at it from the perspective of like, hey, if I'm looking for roles, between, we'll say 80,000 to 200,000, right? And it's going to potentially take 7 months to land that particular role. And you start backwards planning, right? To understand when you want to, be out in the playing field properly and showcasing your candidacy in a very public environment, well, then you're ready to rock and roll. However, depending on your time frame on when you're entering the job market and maybe how you want to enter the job market, if it is from a passive perspective, you may be looking at 7 to 9 months or longer, especially like once you're into that 200 plus range,
right?
Because it takes a lot of time and a lot of evaluations and things just have to align properly. So it's all about those relationships. You want to build those relationships and have those relationships set. So they're the ones basically that are going to be circling back to you and saying, hey, Justin, I got this great opportunity for you, right? We're building this position. I think it's perfect for you, right? And you're like, oh, well, hey, can I help you build it? Right? I may not be the right person, Scott, but I can help you build it. I can help give you some insights so you can get the best talent. And next thing you know, they're like, what? But then obviously throughout that discussion, you want to be able to showcase why it's important to you to be part of their organization, like what motivates you, what gives you passion about the organization that you're serving in, their mission, their vision, right? And the impact that they're having. And for me, I've been lucky, since I retired out of the military, as every organization that I've served in, it's been in the military ecosystem in some way, shape, or form, in different degrees and variations, where I'm able to provide a variety of different impacts to the military family. So,
well, let's keep going on that path. So it's a lot of good advice there for folks approaching their transition or entering their transition, really, whether they're veterans or not, just timeless, universal best practices. Let's talk about what you've done. So you exited the Army in 2017.
Yep.
I know we want to touch on AFMA, but what are some other things that you've done but prior to Proper Patriot? Because we're going to dive in deep on that.
Yeah, so when I transitioned out of the military from Waco, Texas, my first role was at Victory Media, also known as Victory, which is a digital marketing company with brands of GI Jobs, Military Friendly, Military Spouse, and they serve the military community. They provide amazing resources to the military community. And I just happen to have a great opportunity to be the senior marketing and brand operations manager for the organization,
Wow.
where I was able to build those relationships with Fortune 2000 companies and help assist in the management of running their marketing campaigns, which were to market to our military audience, whether it
Mm.
be from an employment aspect, an education aspect, or an entrepreneurship aspect, Scott. And then, through that process, you're continuing to build relationships. I always, tell those that I'm mentoring, keep your head on a swivel. I go back to my fishing analogy, right? Things are always going to happen in your space if you remain active when you're networking, right? So it just happened to be a great opportunity popped up where I was able to transition from that very high level down into the deeper niche of actually helping those that I was trying to get the marketing information to, because in that process, I was like, hey, there's a huge gap of information that's missing where our service members are not prepared properly to be able to land these particular jobs. So when I became a part of the Wells Fargo recruiting team, I was able to liaise, right, with the candidates, also along with the different business leaders across the Wells Fargo enterprise.
Right.
So from the aspect of knowing and understanding what the hiring manager wants and the hiring teams need, all the way down to sourcing for the military talent, right, that best fit that, and then helping them prepare for that, right, so they were ready. And that, again, that was an amazing opportunity to be able to help individuals that were in dire need, one, or two, they had big goals, and I was able to help them land those particular big goals. Keeping your head on a swivel, right? I said, man, I really want to have an even greater impact on our military community, right? In another way. And it just happened to be that there was a great opportunity that came up at the American Armed Forces Mutual Aid Association, right?
Okay.
To do business development, strategic partnership, to align our organization's mission, right, with other nonprofits, other military support and service organizations within our ecosystem, to find those key players, right, who were like-minded, to be able to offer our great solutions to their audience, and vice versa, being able to provide their solutions from the nonprofit perspective to all of our members. And from the AFMA perspective, our organization has been doing this for 142 years, the longest standing not-for-profit association in the military space.
Wow.
I mean, it's truly amazing. So I look at all of those people, or all of those phases in my military service, and it's just been a real honor to be afforded opportunities like this to help our service members and military families.
Well, as exciting as cool as much as of an impact you made through those roles, one of the most exciting things I want to talk to you about here today is Proper Patriot. Now, again, we talked about Brian Arrington. I think not only is he a big friend and a fellow veteran and a fellow huge veterans advocate, but he's a customer, and he loves the way y'all partnered together. So tell us about what is Proper Patriot.
Yeah, great. Thanks for bringing that up. I love Proper Patriot. Is a patriotic apparel company, right, that focuses on the positivity that's happening within our military community, our law enforcement community, our first responder community. We're very, very focused on family, tradition, and self-reliance, right? And when you package that up, that's everything about the community of those that serve. And growing up through the military, I'd always had that entrepreneurial heart, right? That spirit from building, combat builders, right? To then jumping from combat builders, selling combat builders, to doing tee it up golf services, right? Where I did a lot of golf tournaments down in in the Florida area, to then here in 2019. It took me a long time to say, you know what, I want to do this. And, I was thinking about it in 2014. And then at that point in time, there was just so much happening in my life, and then I'm looking at these huge, massive, extremely successful companies, apparel companies, veteran-owned apparel companies, right? Big name players in the space making hundreds of millions of dollars. And I was always, I was a little bit, fearful. I was like, I don't want to, invest my family's money and then lose it. And then eventually, with the support of my wife, she's like, hey, let's do this. It's your passion. You want to be able to provide back to veterans, right? Through apparel, right? That's one of the key areas that allows me to be able to do my community events, which, has been for the last, this will be the second year, is our Patriots Veterans Day overnight fishing retreat. So I'll take, the revenue that I've made throughout the year to be able to fund that.
Hang on one second, because I want to talk about that fishing retreat in a minute, but just to give folks a really clear idea of how they can come to Proper Patriot and some of the things that they can work with your team to order.
Yeah.
Give us a few of those items, if you would.
Yeah. So if you go to properpatriot.com, right, the store face is retail, right? It's patriotic apparel. There's 60 plus designs, right? And yes, that is, one line of effort, we'll call it right there. However, there's multiple lines of effort specifically within the Proper Patriot brand, right? That includes having clients such as Vets to Industry, where we do print on demand, right? Or organizations similar to Vets to Industry. We have well over a dozen different clients where we do print on demand. We do brand on demand, where we're helping them with their brand, from marketing, social, different types of content marketing, different types of creative, right, for their social, the actual artwork and the designs for the apparel, or for whatever they're selling from a merch perspective, right? It's truly end-to-end, full service fulfillment and printing. It could be like printing on postcards. It could be printing on pop-up banners like you see right here, right? Or it could be laying out embroidery on hats, on apparel, on polos, because they have an awesome event they're going to. Or it could be, the polo and the DTG or screen printing that we do, right, for the Vets to Industry shirts that we specifically made for them. So those are just a couple ways. I'll go a little bit deeper. We do wholesale for many organizations. We have small batch and bulk rates.
Okay.
And partnered web stores, right? So within a partnered web store, right, if you're a small brand and you're like, hey, I do Etsy type of stuff, or, I want to sell coffee mugs. I just don't have, I don't have my own web store. Can you sell it on there? Yep, you can sell it on Proper Patriot, right? And I allow those companies to thrive and give back to those companies, right? Instead of a, hey, you're really not going to make too much money. I'm looking at it like, hey, how every month can I give you a check back where you're like making money and you're feeling great, your business is growing, you're scaling, that type of thing. So being able to create and launch apparel brands or small brands in itself is exciting. It's a lot of fun. It allows my marketing and creative side to come out.
Yep.
And furthermore, if it needs to be printed or embroidered onto a hat or onto a shirt or onto some sort of vinyl or stock, we can do it. It could be American made, right? Or it could be imported.
Right.
Obviously there's a price difference, right? And it's not just this or that. Like, it's literally like, hundreds of different products, thousands of different styles.
Building the solution, just like you were talking about a minute ago. Building the solution. It sounds like what Proper Patriot is really good at doing, Justin.
Yeah, small teams, superlative service.
I love it. And I love it beyond, one of the things I heard you say there, with any small business, any business these days, but certainly any small business, there's never enough time in a day. And I love the opportunity that it sounds like one of the things Proper Patriot is doing is giving time back. So you can focus on revenue creating or more, maybe more core business operations. So I love that. Check out properpatriot.com is where you can learn more about everything that Justin just mentioned. Now, I want to talk about this really cool event in year 2 that we're actually, you and I first met. Brian connected us to talk about this 2nd annual Patriots fishing retreat. Now, folks, if any listeners out there, I
get signed up now.
That's right. You gotta get signed
we
up
are
now.
Almost maxed.
You gotta get signed up now. By the time this podcast publishes, the event will be just around the corner, because it's the dates on that event. Justin, we'll talk about what
11th and 12th.
Okay, November 11th
of
12th.
November. Yep.
Right. So, but you can still learn more about it, as Justin's going to describe it in a moment. And I'm sure we're going to be looking for not only final supporters this year, but big supporters for the 3rd annual event next year. So tell us about this fishing retreat, Justin.
Yeah, so this will be the 2nd annual fishing retreat. Last year's fishing retreat, there was about 60 veterans and military families and people that attended. So this year we said, you know what, we want to go over 100, and we want to make it a 2-day event. So it'll be over Veterans Day, November 11th and 12th, starting at 10 a.m. It's going to be located about 2 hours from Northern Virginia in a small little town called Star Tannery, Virginia. It's at the Double Spurs Outfitters ranch, right? And specifically on that ranch, which is an outfitting ranch for various forms of hunting and fishing and whatnot.
Right.
There's 4 miles of stocked creek line. It is pristine. It's beautiful. It's backwoods, outdoor country. And this is a great opportunity to connect with other like-minded individuals, right? Think about it from the health and the wellness perspective, right? And what we need in order to, continue day after day. How often do you get the chance to break bread, sit around a campfire, toss a line in the creek, land a trout, talk to a buddy maybe about a war story or something that you experienced? This is the ultimate opportunity to be able to build meaningful relationships with those that serve. So I strongly encourage you, if you are in the Northern Virginia area or within a couple hours of Star Tannery, Virginia, we're going to have well over 100 veterans, military families, military spouses, law enforcement, first responders, families out there in Star Tannery, Virginia. Get away from the hustle and bustle of it all, right? Enjoy some premier fishing spots that literally, these are spots that you'll dream of. We're talking, 2 pound to 8 pound trout. You might even catch a trophy trout, or maybe even the mysterious golden trout. So I highly encourage you to come out. It's going to be a great opportunity to connect with companies that are our sponsors, right? Like Marcon Solutions or Higher Military, Atlas, Abtech, just to name a few. New England Wholesale Company, they do flags, and a lot of these organizations, many of these organizations, military friendly. They want to give back to our community. They want to hire our community. They want to provide an amazing opportunity for them. Give them solutions like Valor Homes, for example, where they help build roofs and different types of additions onto homes. And there's many other sponsors. So feel free to check out our posts on our social media platforms to learn more about it. But again, this is an awesome opportunity for you to taste some fried trout, barbecue with us, play some outdoor games, and connect over Veterans Day. So
of that, there's still some sponsorship opportunities, right?
Yep.
This is investing in the veteran community in a very meaningful way. Beyond social, of course, again, properpatriot.com. You can find it that way. And we'll also include a link to it in the show notes of this episode here. And final question for you, Justin. Folks can also reach out to you directly, whether it's, compare notes on anything you've shared here today, but including the fishing retreat, right? And how can folks 100%. Do that?
Hey, best way to get in touch with me, either right here on LinkedIn, right? You can just send me a direct message, or you can send an email to me at justin.pearson at properpatriot.com. You'll get a response within a few hours. So
Wonderful.
look forward to assisting, to helping, to providing resources to anyone that wants to interact with the Proper Patriot brand or with myself. So
awesome. Thank you so much, Justin C. Pearson. I know we're just scratching the surface over the last hour or so, but folks, we're going to make it really easy. Again, you can look for those items, those sites, including his LinkedIn profile on the show notes of this episode. One click away. We'll make it as easy as possible. If for some reason you can't find what you're looking for, reach out to us and we'll make sure we get you connected with Justin and this awesome event coming up in November. Okay. So Justin, I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your service. I love what you do since you have separated and retired from the Army, in terms of just ceaseless and endless and tireless give forward, as we call it around here, to the extended veteran community. I tell you, you could power a city block. I think if they just wired you directly in there, that energy would have the street lights beaming. But that's what we need. I really appreciate that. And we hope to have you back again really soon, Justin.
Thank you so much, Scott. And thank you, everyone that took the time to tune into this show. Take care.
I appreciate it. That's Justin C. Pearson, founder and CEO of Proper Patriot, 20-year Army veteran, and one heck of a storyteller and servant leader that helps support the veterans community. Okay, so folks, on behalf of our entire team here at Veteran Voices, hopefully you enjoyed this conversation, this inspiring but informative conversation as much as I have. Remember those seven ways to look to give before as you enter into any networking conversation. That alone is worth the price of admission. Hey, we invite you to find us and subscribe to wherever you get your podcast from. So just search for Veteran Voices, of course, part of the Supply Chain Now family of programming. Big thanks, huge thanks to our friends at Vets to Industry. Learn more about their programming and all their resources as a vet, hundreds, if not thousands of organizations that try to help veteran families, military spouses, you name it. You can learn more at vets2industry.org. Okay, on behalf of our entire team here, this is Scott Luton signing off for now. But hey, challenging you to be like Justin C. Pearson, do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. And on that note, we'll see you next time right back here at Veteran Voices. Thanks, everybody.